Last episode, I said this shift is bigger than the internet, and that it is not the disaster it sounds like. Both halves of that sentence need defending, so this episode is the measuring stick. Since the 50s, this field has absorbed 22 shifts big enough to change how the job is done. Compilers, time sharing, databases, personal computers, objects, the web, open source, the cloud, smartphones, DevOps, containers. Each arrived announcing that this changes everything, and each one did change something real. Put the 22 side by side and a structure falls out. Every shift in 70 years has moved along one or more of just 6 axes. Where you express intent, machine code to assembly to high-level languages to frameworks, and now plain English. How fast you find out whether it worked, overnight batch runs to interactive terminals to unit tests to deploys that report back in minutes. How you find out what you need to know, manuals, then gurus, then search. How much of the system you personally wrote, subroutines to libraries to open source ecosystems to renting whole domains as an API call. How the work is divided, craft to waterfall to agile to DevOps. And how software reaches its users, shrink-wrap boxes to the web to app stores to continuous deployment. 6 dials, and every revolution this field has ever had is some combination of those dials turning. Now take the measuring stick to history. Compilers, the shift that created this profession, moved 1 dial, where you express intent. Stack Overflow moved 1, how you find out. The cloud turned operations hard and pulled reuse along behind it. And the internet, the biggest shift anyone alive remembers, moved distribution completely, then open source rode in on its back and turned reuse. Call it 2 dials, and 2 rewrote every job description in the industry. Now count this one, dial by dial. Where you express intent, moved, plain English is now a serious way to program. How fast you find out, moved, an agent writes the code, runs it, and reports back in minutes. How you find out what you need to know, moved, the model answers before the search box does. How much of the system you personally wrote, moved, and falling fast. That is 4 dials at once, 5 if you count agents joining the division of labor. Nothing else in the catalog has ever moved more than 2. So that is the claim, made precise. AI is not different because it is magic, it is different because it is the first composite shift, the first time most of the dials have turned together. Anyone calling it just another tool is reading 1 dial and ignoring the rest. Now, why that is fine, and it comes down to what the 6 axes actually measure, where you express intent, how fast you check, how you learn, how much you reuse, how you organize, how you ship. Every one of them is a how, and not one of them is one of the 7 problems. 70 years of dial turning and the record from last episode stands, no turn of any dial has ever deleted a problem, what dies is practices. Which is exactly why the die-off underway right now is the largest ever, for dials turning at once means for families of practices replaced at once. Maximum practice turnover, 0 problem death. That is the real size of this shift, and both halves of it are true. I want to hold myself to a standard here, and the standard has a name. In 1986, Fred Brooks published No Silver Bullet, which made a precise, dated claim, rare in this genre, that there is no single development, in either technology or management technique, which by itself promises even 1 order of magnitude improvement within a decade in productivity, in reliability, in simplicity. 9 years later, in the anniversary edition of the mythical Man Month, Brooks reprinted the essay, worked through 9 years of objections, and graded his own prediction in public. It held, and the grading is the part one admire more than the being right. Make the claim precise, put a date on it, mark your own paper where everyone can watch. Last episode, this series put a prediction on the record, and this episode just added the frame it will be graded against. Because the 6 axes hand us the biggest testable question of all. Every previous time a dial turned and made software cheaper, the world answered by wanting more software than the savings, and the number of engineers went up, after compilers, after the internet, after the cloud. For dials at once is the biggest cost collapse this field has ever seen, so the question writes itself, does the pattern hold one more time? Next episode, the actual numbers, including 2 from the government's own books that almost nobody quotes right.